So you've got a team in Kansas City that is known for quick strikes, for deep strikes. We had a couple Sammy Watkins sightings in the playoffs so far. Even Mahomes can run it for, nearly a 30-yard touchdown at any point. Mostert last week proved that he can score from just about any point on the field. And I think just from the number of touchdowns that are going to be scored, that 102 is going to get hit pretty quickly. It's also at like plus 125, so you're getting a little bit extra on that. They must not think it's going to happen. I think that one is, about as slam dunk as you can get.
Yeah, not to mention that even though we haven't seen much of Tyreek Hill throughout the regular season or the playoffs, as far as scoring on some of those deep shots, they're few and far in between, but this looks like the game where he's definitely due to get one from 40 to 50 yards out, and that's pretty much half your total right there. So I could see going over on that very easily.
Plus, the other thing I like to do is I like to bet on things that are fun to see. That way, even if I thought the under was the right play, under 55.5, I would never bet the under because I don't want to be the guy when it's, what would that be, 26, 27, late in the game, with one team driving. I don't want to sit there and be like, come on, stop them so I can keep the under. Like, I'll bet the over for fun and be like, let's play some pinball.
Largest lead by either team. The over-under is 14.5. The over is minus 130, and the under is plus 110.
Wow. So
right.
We know Kansas City has gone down by
double digits in both games. Yes.
Yeah. I'm having some flashbacks all of a sudden. I don't like that.
Don't think there's a system around. Just pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, that I've clearly forgotten that, as anybody on the listening to that recap show can attest. I don't know. I guess I will take the under just because a close game is more fun to watch. I don't foresee San Francisco's defense completely, just being dunked on by Kansas City. And as methodical or as good as Shanahan was in Atlanta at being able to get out to big leads, that was with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. With Jimmy G, it's more of a run-based attack. It's a little bit tougher to get out to a big lead, but I wouldn't fault anybody for taking the over 14.5 at one point. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, hey, look at the championship game against Green Bay. They were 27-0 at halftime. So
there's one bet that I've played every year that we've done this, and it is the margin of victory. And so on these sites, you could pick the exact margin of victory, 1 point, 2 point, 3 points. I prefer to do spreads. This is going to seem a little counterintuitive. I'm going to pick San Francisco to win by between 1 and 6 points, and that's a plus 350 bet. And I'm also going to bet Kansas City to win by 1 to 6 points, and that's a plus 300 bet. So I know I'm going to lose one of them.
Right.
But so if San Francisco wins, I get my $100 back plus the 350, so I've got $450 in my pocket, which will cover the $100 that I lost on the plus 300 bet, and then vice versa for Kansas City. And the reason for that is up until last year, as long as a Super Bowl did not feature a Manning, the Super Bowl, the final score differential in the Super Bowl was 1 to 6 points, something like 8 out of 10 years. So these games tend to be a little bit closer. I fault the Rams last year for not actually being able to put points on the board. But again, this goes back to I'm cheering for a close game. It's a fun thing to root for. You're always rooting for the team that is either just a little bit behind, to get a stop or have to, just put a few more points on the board.
Here's another easy bet, or easiest from my standpoint. Will there be overtime? Yes is plus 800. No is minus 1,400. And remember, we've only had one overtime Super Bowl, in this being going to be the 54th. So 53 Super Bowls, one overtime. What are the odds we have another one?
Yeah, it's probably quite low. That being said, though, we've had a couple of overtime playoff games already. And
absolutely.
That's a lot of money to have to throw down to try and win $100. It is, likely the right move. Bill Barnwell had a line in one of his gambling pieces that I really appreciated. those big lines like minus 1,400, minus 2,000, it's like picking up nickels in front of steamrollers. Like, yeah, you're probably safe, but the payoff isn't that great, and there's a lot of risk if you trip and fall in front of that steamroller.
Right.
Typically, I don't know if everybody knows this. It seems pretty common, but the Super Bowl MVP is almost always a quarterback. And that's because typically in the Super Bowl, you have two really good quarterbacks. Right now, the odds are plus 170 for any position other than a quarterback. Ooh. Now, I'm sure Jimmy G is a great guy. I mean, I'm not sure of that. I'm relatively positive that he's an okay individual. I think the circumstances of him winning Super Bowl MVP are few and far between. So I'm happy to basically say that this is a plus 170 bet on the field against Patrick Mahomes to win the Super Bowl MVP. There's a lot of ways for that to happen. You know, I will gladly take the plus 170 betting against Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, that seems like it's pretty slated to go that way. Garoppolo's had two great games this season. The first game against Green Bay on Sunday night, and then the following week in New Orleans. By far his two best passing performances of the season, where you really weren't expecting him to do that much passing-wise, especially not against the New Orleans Saints, and carry that shootout. Does he have another performance in him like that? I say yes. Does it happen in this game? I don't know. I lean towards no, but I don't want to be, I don't want to be wrong with this bet. But like you said, ideally, if you're betting on quarterback to be MVP in this game, you're pretty much betting on Patrick Mahomes. And
so, how about this? You've got the list of the odds on the Super Bowl MVPs in your thousands upon thousands of available prop bets. I'm sure there's a couple in there that are really intriguing to me. I think, though, if you're betting on an offensive player for the Kansas City Chiefs, you have to bet on Patrick Mahomes.
Absolutely, that's currently even right now.
Yeah, which is insane. But thinking about it, what kind of game? Like the next guys down for the Chiefs are like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, both at plus 2,000. So they're 20-1, or at least they were when I glanced at it a little bit ago.
Yeah, they're still 20-1 at the sheet I have.
Okay. Yeah. What kind of game would Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill have to have? You're talking like 200 yards and 3 touchdowns for them to get the MVP over Patrick Mahomes. Now, can they do it? Oh, they absolutely could. And let's say they put Tyreek Hill back there at punt return to try and run one back, and he does. That could give him a pretty strong case for getting MVP. But if one of the Kansas City receivers has 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, I'm willing to bet that Patrick Mahomes has like 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. And that is a really tough thing to vote against if you're voting for Super Bowl MVP.
True. And I hear what you're saying. And for one of those Chiefs wide receivers, like you're saying, for them to have a big game like that receiving, Patrick Mahomes would practically have to go off. I don't see any one of the Chiefs receivers having that type of game of approaching 200 yards receiving. Now, could Tyreek Hill win MVP? Yeah, but he have to have like a Desmond Howard performance like he did with Green Bay when they beat the Patriots some 20-odd years ago, in which he'd have to have almost 200 yards in the return game total. Like he'd have to start out returning kickoffs. He'd have to, take a punt almost to the distance, and he'd have to have at least one special teams touchdown, either returning one of those punts or kickoffs for a touchdown to even be in the conversation. We expect Patrick Mahomes to be somewhere in the realm of 28 or 40 minimum for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think that's the line everyone's pretty much that would be the case for Mahomes to win MVP minimum. For anybody else, they'd have to have a absurdly phenomenal game. Even if Patrick Mahomes is average in this game and they still win, depending on how much they win by, he's probably a lock to get it. But yet, for me, Tyreek Hill would have to go nuts in special teams as far as returns.
Yeah, it's so tough and that's part of the, I guess, benefit of being, on the team with Patrick Mahomes, right? Like he's going to put up some gaudy numbers, and you might get some gaudy numbers too, but they do a really good job of spreading the ball around most of the time. The Niners defense is good enough to make adjustments. So if they get beat once or twice, it's not like it's not like some of the other teams that Kansas City has faced recently, where they just fail to make adjustments and let up 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns. It's not like Lonnie Johnson's going to be out there defending Travis Kelce again. I say defending.
Right.
What he did to Travis Kelce wasn't really defending. It was like asking for his autograph after each touchdown. I mean, he was close enough for that.
Close only counts on horseshoes.
Exactly right. So we've covered the Kansas City side. There's one really interesting one. Tyrann Mathieu. He is plus like 10,000. If this gets to be, but I mean, again, for him to win it, you're looking at basically Jimmy G having to throw multiple interceptions and then Mathieu running a couple of them back, which the only reason Jimmy G is going to be, firing off that many passes is if the Chiefs have already put up a ton of points, and the way the Chiefs are going to put up a ton of points is with Patrick Mahomes having a huge game. So, there's no, I don't know, it's tough. The San Francisco side is much more interesting. They have Jimmy G is right now second with he's like plus 300. He's pretty highly favored to get the MVP. Then you have Mostert.
Yeah, 72 odds currently.
Yeah, and then you've got Mostert at plus 700. He's pretty interesting there. You end up with like Kittle, I think was the next guy down. Is there any San Francisco player that you like for at the price you could get him at?
Not really, but there isn't. On defense for Frisco, Nick Bosa comes in at 16-1 odds to win MVP. Something that you might be tempted to dabble in. He had pretty strong performance in the conference championship game. So, if you want to go defense, he wouldn't be a bad choice to lean on.
Yeah, and that's really your only pick. I mean,
Richard Sherman comes in at 80-1.
Mostert, but I don't like him
as a defensive player.
Yeah, so I guess that's your only pick there. I know you can pick the field, but given that they've listed off about 30 players,
right?
Anybody who sold, I think, 2 jerseys qualifies for this list. So
absolutely.
I don't think you're going to get a dark horse MVP. So bet the field at your own peril.
The field is 16-1, though.
Field is 16-1.
And one more interesting name here, Damian Williams, running back for the Chiefs, is listed at 12-1 odds.
That could be a little interesting, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
Whoever receiver out of the backfield does get some carries from time to time.
Well, I don't know, man. I think that's why I brought up the whole bet of not a quarterback at plus 170. That's kind of my way of taking the field. I think the most likely outcome here, or the safest outcome, is the boring one with Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying that that Kansas City is going to win and Patrick Mahomes is definitely going to have a great game. It's just that if you look at all the other players you can bet on, you're not getting good enough odds on it. Like Mostert at 7-1 isn't great odds. Like if you had him at like 10 or 15-1, then that'd be a great pickup. Even Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, 20-1 seems great. Right up until you realize that for that to happen, Patrick Mahomes would just have to go off. Well, we've covered a bunch of the football-related ones. What color Gatorade are you thinking for the Gatorade shower?
I think regardless of who wins, it's probably going to be red.
Red. So red is the overwhelming favorite.
Yeah, I mean, because both teams wear a shade of the color to begin with. I'm pretty sure there's green and blue on each sideline, and I know they randomly grab a bucket, but I don't know, because I'm thinking about like the last couple of Super Bowls. I know when the Eagles won, I think it was green because they had green Gatorade on the sideline purposely. The last 2 Patriot wins, I believe it was blue both times, the comeback against Atlanta and last year against the Rams. So I think teams are pretty much starting to be, I don't know if there's a superstition going on there, but like whatever their team colors are, they're going to have those colors of Gatorade in the buckets. So you can expect to see those come out. the wild card, if it's not red, is